Hello. I'm taking the position that abortion cannot be legally justified in any circumstance. And what I want to do first is make an argument from Scripture itself that life starts in the womb. I think that there are a lot of scientific evidence that shows that life begins inside the womb, but I'm not going to get into those due to lack of time and purely make an argument from Scripture that life begins inside the womb. And then, based on off of that argument, I will attempt to justify my opinion that abortion is in no way ever justified, no matter the circumstance. So I think the Bible is pretty clear about children. It says that children are a blessing from God, that our quiver should be full of them, Psalm 127. Children are seen throughout the entire corpus of Scripture as a blessing, something that should be protected and viewed with love and commitment and as a blessing from God. And I think that the Bible goes further and makes an argument that the life of a child, the life of a human being, begins in the womb. Psalm 139, verses 13 through 14 reads, "For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well." Job 30:15 reads, 31:15 reads, "Did not he who made me in the womb make him? And did not one fashion us in the womb?" And then Psalm 22 as well says similar things, that we are formed in the womb, that God made us in the womb. It is taking, the Scripture seems clear there that they're talking about me as an individual. I was me in the womb. I was formed in the womb. God made the person, the individual in the womb. There's a sense of personhood already without them having yet actually been born. And that's, I think, fundamental to make an argument for, or an argument against abortion, because once we accept the premise that life begins in the womb, then abortion really becomes nothing more than terminating the life, a living being that has just not yet been born. And we know from the Bible clearly that murder is wrong, that terminating a life in that way is wrong, because we are killing something. It is not a form of capital punishment. The individual has no say in the matter. They are just terminated. It is really murder. And it's a sad and awful thing that we are committing so many murders of unborn human beings in the United States of America. So I do not think that abortion can ever morally be justified. What I want to do now is just kind of tackle some of the most common arguments, pushbacks that you see from people who advocate abortion, pro-choice views. I think one of the most common ones that we hear by far is that a woman will make the claim, or a man will make the claim of a woman, that it is her body. And so it is wrong for anybody to tell another person what they have to do with their body, because abortion obviously involves an operation on the mother's body, or if you don't have an abortion, there is a life growing inside of you. It affects the mother's body. The argument goes then that nobody has a right to say that a woman should not get an abortion, except for the woman herself, because it is her body and it is only hers to make that choice. And I think fundamentally that's wrong and unlogical. The reason being is because we know it is not actually the woman's body only that is being talked about here. If we accept the premise that life begins in the womb, then a mother carrying a child, within that woman, there are two persons, the mother and the baby. And so abortion, not only, or abortion or lack of abortion, therefore, not only affects the mother, but the person inside the mother. So pro-life advocates are not concerned so much about the woman's body. We're not telling a woman that she can't live her life as she wants, but once her decisions affect another individual, then we feel that, and I feel like the Bible clearly as well teaches that we have a duty to protect that life if it is going to unjustly be killed. So it really isn't just a woman's body that we're talking about. It is the body of the baby, and we need to understand that. Another common argument that I hear is, or that you hear from the pro-choice side, is they say, well, what about when a woman was raped? She had no desire to have this child, and therefore, if she gave birth to the child, it would be traumatic for her because she would think of her assailant. She would think of the person that raped her every time she saw the baby. And so, therefore, in those cases, morally, it is morally justified to have an abortion. Again, I would disagree. I don't think that we can come to the conclusion that because an evil had been done, and don't get me wrong, I think that rape is an awful, awful thing. It is a direct assault against God's plan for sex. It is a horrific act that a man would do to a woman, and I think that the assailant should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But just because an evil had been done does not give us right to perform another evil by terminating the life of the child. The child had no responsibility, had no compliance in the act of its father who raped its mother. Therefore, it makes no sense why we should kill the baby only because it would cause the mother pain, or the baby was unwanted to begin with. Again, I think that we are presupposing a lot by saying that a mother would be in anguish just by seeing the baby. That presupposes a lot that I think is not completely justified. But regardless, the main argument here is that we cannot terminate a life. We cannot commit murder because an evil had been done. I think that Christians could do better in stepping up in these situations and helping the mother who probably is, who could be in not a great spot economically to care for the child. Perhaps she doesn't have family members. Christians can do a better job in not just telling her not to get an abortion, but to aid her and help her in having the child and raising the child. Lastly, before my time comes to a close here, I think another one, and this really is debated on the between pro-choice people as well, or pro-life people as well, excuse me. What about the mother's health? What if the baby, the birth of the baby could be a risk, a high risk even, to the mother's health, and therefore it would be best to terminate the life? While I admit that this is difficult, especially when we get information from our doctors that the chances of the baby living after birth is extremely small, and it could be very, very high risk to the mother. I know that those choices are very difficult, and I recognize that. However, I still do not think that it is morally justified. As good as science is, as well as good as a job doctors do in being able to tell how healthy a baby is going to be, we simply do not know. And I think that when we terminate a child, even based on solid medical findings, we are still taking life into our own hands in a way that God has not allowed us to do, and terminating a life. I do not think that's right. I think that consistently, if we're saying it is a life, regardless of if it's going to live um, a minute outside of the womb, 10 minutes outside of the womb, regardless if the woman's life is in danger, I think that we have responsibility to let let God work His will out through the mother delivering the baby. The only time I could ever see this being justified is if we had 100% knowing, if we knew 100% that the mother would die if she gave birth to the child, in which case one life is going to be killed, and we have to make the decision at that point what life we're going to preserve. So those are some arguments I think that pro-choice advocates will make. I think that my answers to those show that those arguments fall flat. And in summary, I do believe that life begins in the womb, and therefore we have no right to terminate that life under any circumstance.